defend his objective. So, okay, this is the Grunfeld. These moves signify the Grunfeld. So it's kind of like a King's Indian setup, but instead of playing bishop g7, you play d5 right away. Okay, so this game featured the exchange. So e5, knight d5, e4. So this is all book. And now the correct move here is to take. So why do we take? So we save a tempo. Like if we have to move our knight back, for example, we're wasting a tempo. This way we're gaining a tempo because we're forcing white to recapture. Secondly, if we retreat our knight, this knight's going to be better than this knight either here or here. And thirdly, since white has a superiority in terms of space in the center, remember what I always tell you, if your opponent has more space, you want to trade pieces. So it makes sense strategically to want to trade pieces when white has a good center. So for those reasons, we take. Mr. Grun against Mr. Feld, indeed. Okay, this is all standard. So right now it looks kind of weird, right? Like black has 0 pieces developed and white has a beautiful center. So like, why would you play this opening? So the point is you want to attack the center as quickly as possible with moves like c5, knight c6, bishop g7, like Alf Hader said. So right away, attack the center. Okay. So there are 2 main ways to develop for white now. So one is the old and one is the modern. So the old exchange variation is bishop c4 and knight e2. The more modern way features a knight development to f3 and this bishop either going to c4 or to e2. So the old way is how this game continued. So bishop c4, bishop g7, and now you need to support this pawn, so you play knight e2. So the idea is if bishop g4 ever happens, you can play f3 and unpin the knight. And then you can also play bishop e3 to defend this pawn again. Okay? So black castles. We can be both. We're looking at it from both sides. So castle, castle, knight c6, putting pressure on this pawn. This is all natural stuff, right? We're completing our development. Black's going after this weakness, and we're trying to defend it. Okay. So obviously we want to defend this. Might as well do it with development, so we play here. Okay, so now the opening phase for white has been completed. We got all of our pieces out. We're defending our center. We're good. It's up to black to try to disrupt us, because if he just lets us keep our center, we're gonna eventually steamroll him with our space. So yeah, you never want to take here, because these pawns are absolutely atrocious. And although you temporarily win a pawn, like this pawn's gonna fall on c5 eventually, like queen a5 to c5, and these pawns are just way too weak. So you never want to take unless you have a very, very, very good reason. Yeah, I just explained it. Like, these pawns are absolutely horrid. So at any point, this pawn structure just favors black immensely, and all these pawns are going to fall eventually. So now, I mean, you went from basically having like 1 weakness to having 3 weaknesses, or at least 2 weaknesses. And earlier, the same thing happens. Yeah, like you're either hanging c3 or queen a5 happens. Yeah, after c5, if you just take right away, queen a5 forks the 2 pawns. So it's never good. It's never good except in rare circumstances. So, okay, so what does black do here? So there's a couple of different plans for black. Oops, I forgot to go forward. Okay, so bishop e3 is what we play. Okay, so one idea is to play queen c7 and rook d8, challenging this file with the rook as soon as possible. Another idea is after bishop e3 to simply take here and play bishop g4. try to remove this defender of this pawn. And then if f3 to defend, to, like I said, to unpin, then you play knight a5 immediately. So the idea is if pawn takes bishop, knight takes bishop. And you get quick play on the c file. So that's another plan. So in the game, black chose to play knight a5 immediately. Okay, so he's trying to get he's going to try to get this bishop out. Okay, so where is this bishop going? I guess, is it going this way, or is it going this way? Is it going to the left or to the right? Yeah, basically, are you moving this pawn or not, is my question. Yeah, our left. So, yeah, this is left, and this is right. Yeah, so left or right. So yeah, the answer is indeed left. So knight a5, the bishop moves back to d3, and now we want to clear the way, so we play b6. Also, we defend our pawn, but yeah, we're clearing it a way to go here. Okay. So, first question. So b6. Okay. So now the question is this move good now? Is d takes c5 good now? Because now we have pressure on this pawn, right? So, for example, now we just win a pawn here, and also there's no more queen a5 ideas, right? So this pawn is not as weak. So the question is this move good? What do you guys think? Yes or no? No, but I don't know why. If you had this position in a game against an opponent, would you take this pawn? Don't think about what a grandmaster would do. Think about what you would do. If you had white in this position, would you say, "Oh, look, I have this pawn," or would you make a different move? I mean, I'm not saying this is like winning, but I'm saying, is it a good move? Like, is it something that white should play here? Okay, let's put it a different way. Let's put it a different way. Say you're black here, and white takes this pawn. What would you do? Well, let's put it this way. So tell me, tell me, as black, what do you do if white takes this pawn? Well, let's put it that way. Resign, we lost a pawn. Yeah. So 1-0. 1-0. We lost a pawn. Okay, but seriously, so pawn takes pawn. What do we play here? Okay, don't forget this pawn is defended by this knight. So bishop takes c3 doesn't work. But what do we play after pawn takes pawn? c3 is not hanging. c3 is not hanging. All right, so apparently against a lot of you, I should be taking this pawn because you guys have no idea what to do here. I've seen very few people say what the right move is here, which is not good. Which is not good. So the right move here is to recapture. Okay? The right move is to recapture. Why? Because if you allow this, then this pawn becomes weak. So say you play bishop g4, e, f3, bishop e6. Now I take here, and now this pawn is weak. Okay? And it's on an open file. All right? So you take first, recapture, and now what do? Right. Now what do? Most of you said it. c3 doesn't fall, though. But most of you said it. Yeah, queen c7. Right. Okay. So part one is recognizing you have to take first. Because it's a lot different having this pawn here versus having this pawn here. This pawn is sheltered now, and it's not as weak. Your rook's already defending it, and it's not on an open file. Okay? So this is a huge difference. That part one is that this pawn needs to be on a7, not on b6. So you can't allow a double recapture, c takes b6. Okay. But the second point now. So I play bishop d4, defending this pawn, offering an exchange of bishops. So after bishop d4, what do you play? Yeah, it is development, and your queen's on a good square. So what do you play here? Very good. Yes. Yes, you definitely do not want to trade, right? This just absolutely helps white. Now his pawns are beautiful, right? So you wouldn't want to trade. But at the same time, you don't want to let him take, really, because this bishop is one of your best pieces. So it looks a little paradoxical to block it in, but e5 is indeed the best move, for sure. Okay? So why? Well, bishop e3, and now, what will we do as black? There are two moves you can consider here. One of two moves here. f5, let's go! Okay, f5 is not a good move, no. So the two moves here you play are either rook d8, hitting and developing the rook, or you can play an immediate knight c4, threatening knight takes e3 and messing up these pawns, and then the e3 pawn will fall soon, okay? So here the point is that, yeah, black is temporarily down a pawn, but really white's pawns just get in the way of his pieces. Like this pawn gets in the way of his bishop, this pawn gets in the way of his knight, this pawn gets in the way of his rook. Whereas we don't really have the same problem. Like, yeah, this bishop kind of gets away in this bishop, but this bishop is good, these rooks are going to be good, they're going to get both on open files, and this knight actually has a strong outpost coming up. So, so yeah, I mean, you're temporarily down a pawn, but this position, you have excellent compensation for the pawn here. I mean, most grandmasters would prefer to play black here, even though you're down a pawn. Like, it's going to be almost impossible for black to lose this. But the activity of black's pieces will make it such that it's going to be hard for white to defend this. So it'll probably end up that white will end up jettisoning a pawn anyway, and black will just have a superior position. So, yeah. So yeah, if he takes on c4, the problem is now your queen is in an optimal square, and you're getting ready to play bishop a6, rook c8, rook d8. This pawn's going to fall, and you're just going to have a superior position, because now this pawn is weak too. This pawn you can get at as well. You're going to get your rook to the 7th rank. It's just bad news. Okay, so you guys were right from this position that that dc5 would not be good here. Okay, because it does win a pawn, but the important point is you take queen c7, e5, and then either rook d8 or knight c4. Oops, not knight d4, knight c4. Okay, so bishop e3, either knight c4 or rook d8 here. Yeah, and then you're going to be playing like bishop e6, rook a c8, putting pressure on this pawn, maybe doubling on the d file, all sorts of stuff. Okay, but that's not really that important because, I mean, this whole variation is really not that important. But I wanted to show you guys that you shouldn't be afraid of losing a pawn if you get great activity. So most of you were right intuitively that taking is not something black should worry about.